We are City of Five Nations podcast. I'm Daniel Shaughnessy, and what a pleasure it is to be here again with you. And we have special guests lined up for you today, as always, as we continue with our series, Police Positive, Fulfilling Your Dream. Always, kids grow up, and many of us think, oh man, it'd be so cool to be a police officer. And then somewhere along the lines, we get into other walks of life. But as I sat in our City of Five Nations Police Department, and I was talking to the chief and the deputy chief, they were talking about what a fun job being a police officer was. And we came together and thought, you know what, we need to tell our community that the opportunity to fulfill your dream to become a police officer is alive and well right here. It's a great job to have. And with that, I'm going to ask Assistant Chief, who is Major Rod Taylor, to come on with me. And Rod, man, what makes being a police officer in the City of Five Nations such a great opportunity for anyone who might have that dream?
Well, I think Shawnee is the perfect size town to be a police officer. The officers that we have on patrol have a lot of opportunities to get experiences in different parts of the city. They're not just assigned one area of the town. So they get exposed to those different districts and different types of calls throughout the 3 shifts. So they may be on days, they may be on evenings or midnights, and they get a lot of opportunities to really get exposed to a lot of different types of calls, whereas a larger or a smaller agency, you just don't get that many opportunities.
Well, you've introduced us to a couple of really great individuals, and today we get to meet another one. And I like it because when we talk about opportunities and we talk about local, and I'm going to let you go, Rod, because I want to introduce Sylwia Jerczynska. And Sylwia, first of all, I love your name. How wonderful is that? Where exactly does that originate from? Now, I'm a proud Irishman, and I'll throw that out there, from the western seaboard of Ireland. Where does your name originate from?
Well, hello, Daniel. Thank you for having me on the show. So I'm Polish. I was born and raised in Poland. So my first name is Sylwia with a W, and everybody's just making fun of it and pronounce it differently, which I'm used to. It's all good. We pronounce different certain letters in a different way. So the W we pronounce like V. So you still pronounce my name Sylwia. In my last name start with J, but it's pronounced like Y. So it's just differences in a language and a culture. That's all it is.
Well, and I want to say it's beautiful, just like you. When I saw your name, I was having a hard time, and then I heard it said once, and I was like, oh, wow, that makes so much sense. How cool is that? So, Sylwia, tell us, what were you doing before being a police officer, and how did you come into the role of perhaps fulfilling your dream in becoming a police officer?
So I started my career in EMS first. I became an emergency medical technician in 2013. Then I got hired on at React EMS in Shawnee, and I continued my education where I became a paramedic. So throughout that time, I knew I was always want to be a police officer. That was the dream of my life, of my childhood. So I knew my ultimate goal is to become a police officer. And as I was working at React in Shawnee, eventually I got to know some of the folks from the department. I went and ride along with them. And eventually I just applied. In 2016, I applied for reserve position, and I was reserve officer with Shawnee for 2 years. After 2 years, in 2019, I applied for full-time position with the department, and I'm a full-time now.
How wonderful. And so you bring the medical skills with you as well. And how have you found that to be an advantage for you? Or have you ever run into any situations in which that really helped out with the background that you had?
Yes, I actually got a chance to use my medical skills. Even though I don't have equipment carried in my patrol car, I can still use my just hands and my knowledge on how to save people's lives. Usually that will happen throughout a traumatic event, a car accident. That's when I can use my skills just to keep them alive until the paramedics will arrive on scene.
Well, in talking about that, Sylvia, I'm going to let you go just for a second because I'd like to bring on Dispatch Director Chrissy Brown, because dispatch is that link between the police officers and saving people's lives. Chrissy, do you have something from your knowledge base that helps you to understand if there's a life and death situation that you're dealing with that you can prepare the officers for when they come on the scene?
One of the things that we do with our training is that we have international training with our dispatchers, or international certifications. So we're asking more questions. We're asking specific questions. And then if it is a safety situation, then we can go into immediately providing some type of instruction to maintain the caller's safety and the officer's safety. And while we're, one person may be on the phone, that person may or may not be also updating responders at the same time, but there is always somebody on the radio trying to provide updates at the same time as we're gathering information to provide and relay.
Well, in that training, and I know that everybody has to go through the different sorts of training for the officer and for the dispatch. Rod, as you have a team like these two ladies, what does that do for the positive nature of the force to have backgrounds like you do with Sylvia, and then of course the leadership skills of Chrissy in dispatch?
Oh yeah, I can't tell you how fortunate and lucky the department and the community is to have such qualified people that we have, like Sylvia and Chrissy. Both of them have a wide array of special knowledge before they ever even became department members. So to have those tools in their bag just to additionally help us in different ways is amazing. Yeah, we're really lucky to have them.
Well, and not to influence anyone away, do you have to have special skills in order to apply?
No, not at all. Take me, for instance. I didn't have any, well, I felt like I didn't have any special skills. I had the military training, but like we talked about in that first episode, we're more than willing, and we encourage continued education and additional skills while the officer is in the academy. And once they graduate from the academy, they go into that field training program and learn more things about how to use those academy skills on the street. And then we continue to encourage them to go to those additional classes that the state provides, and also to pursue their degrees, and whether it's associate or bachelor's or a master's, just to continue to keep learning new things.
Well, in preparation, Rod, for this show, I know that we talked a little bit about Sylvia. Do you have any question for her that you think would be interesting for the audience to hear an answer to?
Yeah, I think Sylvia had some opportunities to, as a reserve officer, to use that EMS and police skills during the SWAT competition. So she's already had some exposure to the SWAT team, and we hope to bring her back whenever she's eligible to do that. So
wonderful.
Sylvia, my question to you is, tell us about some of those experiences you had while you were helping the SWAT team out.
I was a medic on a SWAT team, but
Can you hear me?
just to, yeah. Yes, I was a SWAT medic on a team, and just to be on that team and being chosen to be on a team, it's such an honor. It's not easy to get in on it, even as a member or in medical, but just be there and watch those guys train and train with them, practicing shooting, practicing, building search. I mean, it's just, there's so much to learn. You're learning so much that does nothing but benefit you for your job just as a police officer on the streets. So the guys are great. They're great trained, and I really respect them for what they do. They have to be on the call 24/7 if anything happens, which happened before, and they're always there for sure. And I really respect them all.
Well, Sylwia, we have high respect for you as well as one of our officers, and I'm wondering, what is your favorite aspect of the job that you've come across over the last 3 years with the force?
Helping people. I feel like I've always was searching for this career where I can help people. So when I became a paramedic, yes, I was saving lives and helping people, but on the police side, it's a different way of helping people. And what I found is a simple talk, just making conversation with people who want to talk to you because they have bad day, but they just want to simply vent. They don't really have an emergency going on, nothing really special going on, but they will still call. And sometimes they just call to talk. So sitting there and talking to them just for 5 minutes, it will make their whole day. And what I like about this job is contact with so many people, so many personalities. And I feel like I'm fulfilling myself in this part where by talking to them, I can give them a little bit of knowledge, educate them a little bit about stuff just to make them feel better. And that's how I find myself fulfilling this job.
Wow. Wow. Hey, Chrissy, nobody talks any more than a dispatcher. You probably talk quite a bit, right? What kind of questions do you have for Sylwia, or what kind of story do you have about Officer Jerczynska?
Well, I have a story about and a question for when she was with reacting. The paramedics and fire department have a different type of schedule, rotating wise, than patrol does. So patrol, every day who you're going to have on. Fire and paramedic back and forth. They've got the 24-hour shifts. So in order to keep up with the shift, we would turn around and say, "Oh, hey, Sylwia, it must be green shift day," or we don't hear Sylvia's voice today, but she is one of the first people in a while that we, beginning while she was on the radio, we were like, "Oh yeah, Sylvia's on." We love to hear her accent on the radio. It's different. She was pleasant. She's a pleasant person. She's still pleasant on the radio, but we always enjoyed hearing her on the radio, and we kind of used her voice as knowing what shift was on for fire and react that day. My question for her: how easy was the transition from EMS to patrol?
I'll be honest with you, it was not easy for me because the traffic on the EMS side, it seems persistent, the same pretty much, with just slight changes depending on the call. But the way how the traffic goes in the EMS side is quite the same to me. Whereas when I switched to police side, it was completely different. It took me some time to get a grip of the traffic, to listen to the radio. In EMS, you have only a few ambulances talking to the dispatch. On a shift, you have 10, maybe more people talking, and you have to listen to them all in reference to know what's going on. So I'll be honest, it was just not easy for me, but it took me a little while just to get a grip of it. But eventually I did. And I think so far, so good. And I think hopefully it's getting better.
You did great.
Well, I can. Thank you. And yeah, I can tell, Officer Jerczynska, that you communicate very well, actually. And I understand what Chrissy is saying. It's just I wasn't kidding earlier when I said it's beautiful to hear you talk. That wasn't even planned with Chrissy.
Well, thank you.
I do have a question about being a police officer in the varied roles. Officer Price the other day talked about it. Something that was different for him than what he anticipated was the number of different things that he had to do throughout the day. He may go from, a fender bender, and then all of a sudden he's got to go move a tree off the road, and then all of a sudden he's assisting on some other call. What is it that when you became a police officer, perhaps was a little bit different than what you anticipated being like?
Okay, so first of all, I grew up in Poland on American movies, so I thought it's gonna be like that. Action movies. But honestly, I really never knew what this job really consists of until I got into it. So it's hard for me to say what I was expecting from this job, because I literally didn't know what is going on within the job, what is going on within the department, like what this job really is based on, besides just going to crazy calls like domestics, fights, maybe accidents. But yeah, I didn't know what to expect. So when I joined the police department, I've learned there's a lot to this job. There's a lot, and this is just big customer service, serving our community, serving people as best as you can, and that's why I found myself in it. That's why, and I love it. This is what I've always wanted to do. My dream came true. All my dreams came true, coming to this country. So I'm very happy with it, and I'm very happy with the department and people I work with.
Oh, wow. Well, we're gifted to have you. Okay, but you brought up something awesome. Chrissy, you're on the spot. What's your favorite cop movie?
Oh, yeah. I live with a cop, so it's hard to.
Come on,
21 Jump Street. Who doesn't love that movie?
Oh my goodness, the new one or the old one?
I'm a little more than one.
Okay, what about you, Rod? What's your favorite?
I'm so disappointed, Daniel, because I missed all of Sylwia's responses, and I wanted to hear them so much.
Don't worry, it's on demand. As soon as we're done, you can go back and review and give us all grades.
I can't wait. I'd say my favorite police movie is probably Mel Gibson and Lethal Weapon.
Way to go. So Chrissy's kind of the comedy girl, and you're kind of the serious one, right?
I don't know. He's pretty funny.
Yeah, he is pretty funny, but Glover was always pretty tough. Sylwia, what do you think? What was your favorite movie that you saw growing up about American police officers?
Well, there was many movies that I've seen when I was growing up, like Bad Boys 2. But my favorite movie is End of Watch. It's definitely not none of those that was said before, but End of Watch so far is my favorite movie. And if they ever made a second part, I hope they made it about female officer, and I hope I can play the main role.
All right. Well, we'll do everything in our power to make that happen, which isn't a lot, but we'll try.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's interesting. Come on. Aren't you? Nobody's going to ask me? Come on.
Oh, yeah. Daniel, what's your favorite movie?
cheat. And this is the whole question. This is the whole reason I asked all of you guys is because I wanted to brag, but it was probably, I figured, besides Rod, it was probably before everybody was born. My favorite cop show would have been Adam 12. You probably never even heard of it, have you? See, Rod has.
Not me.
Yeah. One Adam 12.
One Adam 12, that's right. And you know what would come on after that? It's kind of fitting, was Emergency, which was like the paramedics. So with Sylwia, it's perfect. It's like it went from Adam 12 to Emergency.
Yeah.
I've got a question for Major Taylor and Sylwia with that. I saw the movie 911 or the call, and I like Halle Berry, but I got mad throughout the movie because that's not how my life is. So do you watch police movies and get mad because you know that's not what it's like out there?
Oh my God, all the time. All the time. When I watch Emergency or when I watch ER show or when I watch some other shows about paramedics and what they do, how they respond. Yes, I do all the time. I just say out loud, it's like, oh my God, that we would never do it. That never happens. What they're trying to show, I don't know, but all the time, every time I sit and watch, I just pick up little things just so I can see that what's not accurate in the movie and what's real in the real life. All the time, it's like a second nature. It's just a second nature of every paramedic. It's almost like you can't really divide these two apart. You see it and you know what to do, and if it's done any other way, it's wrong.
Sylwia, what about the physical fitness aspect of the job? Being a police officer, I know you have to be physically fit. Is that something that you were prepared for coming in through life experiences, or is it something that's new for you? And do you enjoy it?
Yes. So I've done all the sports, and I was even trained karate when I was a kid. I started when I was 13 years old until 18. So I was always physically fit. I like the sport. I love the sport, and I still do it. I still go to the gym and I work out. So I've done it my whole life. And then one of the officers actually told me that he thinks I'm the strongest girl he's ever seen because I can lift lots of weight. I disagree with that. But I did prepare myself. Before the physical test for the Shawnee Police Department. It took me about a month and a half. I was working at React for 24-hour shift. I would get off at 7 a.m. and I would just run along Airport Drive to Independence and the way back every morning. And then I would go home and go to school. So I was doing work, school, and preparing myself at the same time to get into the police department as a reserve. So I had a lot of going on.
What have you found to be the most challenging part of being a police officer for you?
For me, I think there's so much to learn. There's so much to absorb, and it takes time. People have to help you out. People have to correct you. You have to figure things out on your own. So it just takes time, just like in any other job. You just have to get a grip of it, and if you make mistake or if you do it something differently the next time, take it as experience. It's a learning experience every day. Our lives are just a learning experience. So I would say that's what it is.
Chrissy, as director of dispatch, what is something that you have had to learn working with your crew that perhaps you didn't realize you didn't even know, in the sense of, in your environments, things are different, and perhaps a light came on that said, I thought I knew a lot about that, but I really don't, and you had to learn something new?
One of the things that comes to mind is that, like I said, I live with an officer, so I'll hear, how his department does things, his perspective on different things. So I like to take that into consideration. I care about the guys in our patrol, and I want to take care of them just as well as I would expect my husband's dispatch center to take care of him. But sometimes I have to take a step back and realize, okay, what I'm thinking their situation is, it's different. People react different to police officers than they do the dispatcher. I know that I can sit and critique an officer all day long, and probably vice versa. They may do something. I'm like, why are they doing that? That doesn't make sense. How come they on this car, take the person to jail? But then I have to step back and think, okay, well, the situation's already bad. They don't want to make a bad situation worse by taking the victim to jail or by, overstepping boundaries that may create an even bigger problem when they're trying to solve the issue. For sometimes it's just a matter of backing off and knowing I know what they're actually facing out there on the streets.
Yeah, so perspectives. And Rod, that's interesting because that's something that I have experienced with you before in a room when there were officer recruits, and there were a few that I thought, oh, well, he's going to be a good officer or he's going to be a good officer. But really, you as the recruiter kind of straightened me out in the sense of, no, that doesn't work. And so the perspective of somebody outside the job and outside the selection process is a lot different than what really is the selection process. So I want to ask you, in your selection of officers, just like Sylwia, how do you find the good ones? How do you not pick the wrong ones? What are you looking for from your recruits that might be different than what an outsider like myself, my perspective might be on who you would choose?
Yeah, that's a good question. And one of the, and it's very difficult for those who aren't selected, and it's sometimes it's difficult for them to accept because they may feel like they want to do it, but we learn through the different tools that we have available in that initial testing that really gauge the personality, and they may not be the right fit for what we're looking for. So they may not be a good fit to be a police officer. So sometimes that's difficult to absorb for them. And so they, in the early stages, they will take a MMPI test. And basically that's just an initial test to kind of gauge their personality, to see how well suited they would be for police work. And there are additional personality tests that they have to take other than that. And then they go through the polygraph exam. So there's a number of steps that really determine whether that officer is gonna be able to make it. And then you have the FTO program. So you have all of those tools and steps that, and I've noticed over time since I've been here, and even before I got here, I would hear the older officers talk about, yeah, when I first got hired, they gave me the badge and the gun and the car, and they said, stay out of trouble, don't get in trouble, and don't wreck the car, and have a good day. Well, we've come leaps and bounds from that day. And so now it seems like each decade or so, the academy gets a little bit longer, and they're able to provide more training for the officer, and our field training program has even lengthened from what it was when I first started. So there are a lot of steps along the way to help that officer, to make sure that officer is getting the proper training and they are a good fit for our community.
Well, in just a moment, Officer Jerczynska, I'm going to ask that you give your best invitation to somebody who might not think they would qualify to be a police officer, but yet their dream has been to be a police officer for a long, long time. And Rod and Chrissy, I want to thank you both again for a wonderful day, to be able to speak with you and spend more time and get to know you guys better. And as leaders in our City of Five Nations, What a great job that you do. And I look forward to talking to you again after the weekend on Monday. Thank you both for being with us today.
Thank you.
See you later, Sylvia. So somebody, you know, when I was with Rod and I was watching that recruiting process, it really was like that. It was almost like the guys who thought and gals who thought they were the obvious choices, those were the ones that I thought would get chosen, but they weren't the ones. He talked about things like temperance and being able to really suppress your own ego and be able to think clearly through different situations. And he was able to gauge those things through the answers in which they gave, which was so very impressive to me. And I believe we have scheduled an officer, and I'm not going to give it up yet, who actually was chosen in that process. And I can't wait to talk to him about his process, 5 or 10 years ago. But yourself coming in, and I love so much that you say you've always dreamt of being a police officer and watching the movies and even the steps that you took. What kind of encouraging words could you offer to somebody in our community, perhaps who doesn't think that they have it or doesn't think that it would be a possibility for them? Can you encourage some of our community members to step on board and become a candidate for police officer?
Absolutely. So there is this, my favorite saying from a movie, Pursuit of Happiness. If you've ever seen it or anybody's seen it, is with Will Smith.
Will Smith.
My favorite saying the whole time in this movie, he says, don't ever, ever let somebody tell you that you can't do something. So with that being said, even if somebody tells you that you're not going to fit in, that you don't look like you're going to be a police officer, that you should give up on it, never, ever, ever give up. I never did. It took me 2-3 times to get into the department. I didn't get in the first time, but I knew that's not going to stop me because there's many people that don't get into the department the very first time. It takes time. It's very competitive as well. You might have 20 people fighting for 2 spots. So even though I didn't get it the first time, the second time, I said, I'm not going to give up. Just like I didn't give up on anything else, making my other dreams come true, when I came to the United States. So those are my words of encouragement. Don't give up and don't let anybody tell you that you can't do something. If you fail, just get back up and keep trying. That's the only way to succeed.
Oh, I love that. And just hearing you say that from that movie, I remembered Will Smith delivering that, and there was a couple of times that he delivered that with tears in his eyes because it could be so frustrating for him. Yeah. And on the other side, in that movie, he had a dream of what it could be like. And something that I'm getting very consistently in spending time with you guys over the last few days is there's really kind of a family environment. Would you talk to that fact a little bit about how you get along with other officers and how it becomes like a family? It's worth the effort to continue on and continue to try.
Absolutely. Especially for our department. I can't speak for others, but our department, nobody ever judges you for being a new person. When you're a new person, when you start out, you make mistakes. You don't know. You call your supervisor a lot. You call your peers a lot to ask questions. How do I do it? What do I do it? But when you make mistakes, or if you do something that other people won't like it, which is nothing major, nobody's going to judge you because they know you're new. They've been and done it too. They've been through the same situation as you. They might not remember because it's been 5-10 years since they've done it. But that's what I love about Shawnee guys. We stick together, and also we don't judge each other. We really help each other no matter what. That's what I've noticed. So
Officer Sylwia,
definitely, I recommend people for applying for our department because it's very worthwhile.
Well, Officer Sylwia Jerczynska, thank you so much. And it's been a privilege to get to know you better today. And I look forward to seeing you out on the streets sometime. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you for having me.
You have a great weekend, I hope. You've been watching We Are City of Five Nations podcast, and what another great example of the great people who live within a 10-mile radius. You know, you spend 90% of your time within 10 miles of your home. It's really, really fascinating when you take a moment and try to get to know the people around you, especially those who perhaps are different than you, that do different things, that look different, that may even smell different. If we get to know each other around us, that's when we can truly come together and our fabric of our community grows into something far more than any of us could imagine. What a gift it was to get to know Sylwia a little bit better today, Officer Jerczynska, and also, as always, great to spend time with Major Rod Taylor and with Chrissy Brown. And we thank you for taking time to watch with us as we learn a little bit more about our community. Because here in the City of Five Nations, we are building community together, one season at a time. We hope to see you again. Tomorrow, we have a special podcast coming through, a wonderful guest. We're going to talk about the upcoming elections a little bit and how we plan on finding out what community members want to know from their elected officials, and also invite our elected officials to come on and answer some of those questions. But even more importantly than that, get to know them a little bit better before we all go and cast our vote. That's going to be a series coming up in June, and we're going to give you a little bit of a preview tomorrow, the Know Your Vote series. So we hope to see you tomorrow, and then again with our police force on Monday. Have a great day, everybody, and thank you for watching or listening.